Good day everyone, my name is Peter Galo and I am a BSEd student from Agusan Colleges Incorporation in class evening, and I was assigned in to discuss lesson 14, men and masculinities. So we have lesson objectives. This module discusses the many phases of men and masculinities. It also discusses themes of masculinities and its relationship with well-being, fathering, domestic roles, and drug and alcohol use. This module finally deals with hegemonic protest and caring masculinities. At the end of this module, you are expected to first understand fully men's studies and the construct of masculinity. Second, know fully the terms of masculinity and its relationship with well-being, fathering, domestic roles, and drug and alcohol uses. And lastly is comprehend hegemonic protest and caring masculinities. Introduction. Since 1970s, studies on different aspects of manhood, from men in the labor market to men in the family and violent men, etc., were made. By the 20th century, the number of these studies increased dramatically. A growing body of literature theorizes men and masculinities, focuses on a variety of topics including men's violence, fathering, pornography, men's crimes, female masculinity, male femininity, etc. This study arose despite the clear dominance of men over global economic and political power. Men make up a large majority of corporate executive, top professionals, and holders of public office. Worldwide, men held 93% of cabinet level posts since 1966 and most top positions in international agency by January 1999. So, kanang mga lalaki karon or ang lalaki this time is mas powerful. Kabalo naman ta sa traditional nato nga pamaagi nga ang man is dominant. Siya ang naghanda sa tanan buhatonon diri sa earth, and mostly sila ang naikaya within sa, for example, the political, nabantayan nato nga ang nakaagi og presidente here in the Philippines is duha lang ka babae ang nahimong presidente. Then mostly sa ilaha is lalaki na, and more on negosyante diri sa Philippines is puros lalaki pod. So diri sa lesson nato nga atong i-discuss nato kung unsa ang mga power or unsa ang kaya sa isa ka lalaki. Essentially, views of gender are still popular and are constantly reinforced in the media. However, they are increasingly under challenge, not only in biology but also in every life. The rise of the women's liberation movement and many feminism that have followed on from it produce a massive disturbance in the gender system and people assumptions about gender. Large number of men now acknowledge that their position is under challenge, that what they once took the granted about must be rethought, making men's studies and masculinity become popular. Men's Right Lobby. One of the main founding texts of this lobby is by Warren Farrell. In his work, The Myth of Male, Power Why Are Men the Disposable Sex. According to him, men are now the gender victims as a result of feminism have gone too far, with men having increased responsibilities but few rights around issues of marriage, divorce, child custody, and access to children. So, pa, um, according daw kay Warren Farrell, ang man is na-abuse na gyud. Not lang sa ilahang responsibility sa kapamilya, sa ilahang pamilya, kundi sa ilahang mga rights na kailangan nila sa ilang kinabuhi. And sa isa ka tao, we have rights, but for men wala na sila makuhang rights because they are men. So that's why mo na siya ang hinungdan nganong nasulat or nahimo ni Warren Farrell ni nga might. Modern legislation is seen to be overprotective of women interests, resulting in discrimination against men at the time when they are under increasing threat within a rapidly changing society. So kini siya. Sa sobra ka protective sa government or sa legislation, mas na-abuse na to ang power, or mas na-overuse na to. As a female, we have batas, we have law to protect our feminism. But how come sa lalaki wala silang protective law, di ba? So sa men's right lobby, gipakita nila or gusto nila i-express that sila ay isang tao at kailangan din nila ng karapatan ipagtanggol at protektahan ang kanilang sarili. Still, some researchers argue that these pro-male movements were only a reaction to feminism, an attempt to accuse women and feminists for creating problems that men encounter in society. So, ang uban researchers is ni disagree because ang ilahang pasabot ani nga para sa ilaha, if ang mga male is nagprotest para makakuha sila, makagain sila og protection gikan sa government, pero nagihapoy mga researchers nga ni argue para lang kay ang ilahang tos sa pagpasampa og sa mga pro-male movements is baka gamitin lang nila ito para mapasakitan or mas ma-abuse nila ang woman. So disagree ani nga movements, but wala sila mahimo. So masculinity themes. What is masculinity? Masculinity is a social, cultural, and historical construct depend on and related to other factors such as class, ethnicity, sexuality, age, and disability. Researchers on men's studies and masculinity establish common themes with strengthen and develop this involving concept. So, masculinity, a social expectation of being man. So as a lalaki, you have meron na kang name tag. For example, you are a father. Ang father is maingon na dayon nato nga ang father na ni siya kanang haligi ng tahanan. So wala na siya right na baylohon, which is kung gusto man gani niya mahimo ilaw ng tahanan. No, because mao ni siya ang naka-assign sa lalaki as a father. So as a man, or as in nakaka sa masculinity, you are the expectation of society. Labi na if lalaki ka. For example, di ba? Masculinity or male should be dominant, tough, disgrading, violent, serious, provider, aggressive, emasculation, macho, unemotional, and suppression. But this characteristic is toxic siya sa society. This is description, but this is a toxic description sa masculinity. Because bakit kung lalaki ka hindi ka na ba malulungkot? Kung lalaki ka dapat bang hindi ka soft feeling? Kung lalaki ka dapat ba lagi ka na lang galit? So this is a toxic characteristic of a man. So sa society natin ang dami talagang nangyayaring ganito, especially sa mga lalaki na hindi pa natin masyadong kakilala, at yun nga, agad natin na silang nahuhusgahan. Masculinities. So we have three, multiple masculinity. The next is collective, and next is something like that. Basta tatlo sila. First is multiple masculinity. Accordingly, there is no one pattern of masculinity that is found everywhere. Different cultures and different periods of history construct masculinity differently. Some cultures makes heroes of soldiers and regard violence as the ultimate test of masculinity. Other cultures look at soldiering with disdain and regard violence as so multiple masculinity. So ang keyword ito is violence. Para sa masculinity, you should be a violent. So ahama ka makakuha ani nga ano. So no one pattern of masculinity that is found everywhere. Some countries regard homosexual sex as incompatible with true masculinity. Others country think that no person can be a real man without having an homosexual relationship. So, 'di ba? Di ka matawag nga lalaki if wala ka nakatry og homosexual. So, para sa ako, ang homosexual is dili maayo, and it cause illness, diba? So di ka sa lain nasod, di ka matawag ng lalaki if wala ka nakatry o wala ka misulod sa homosexual relationship. The meaning of masculinity in working class life is different from the meaning of the middle class life, and same goes among the very rich and the very poor. It is even possible that more than one kind of masculinity that be found within a given cultural setting and within a specific class. This only showed that masculinities cannot be delimited to a sole definition or description, as various countries, culture, and levels in life view this concept differently. The second theme is hierarchy and hegemony mo. So mo ni siya akong nalimtan na ika-second theme sa masculinity. Typical some masculinities are more revered than others. Others may be dishonored. For example, homosexual masculinities in modern Western culture. Others are even socially marginalized. Example, the masculinities of this empower ethnic minorities. Others are even exemplary, taken as symbolize admiring traits, and the masculinities of sporting heroes. The form of masculinity which is culturally dominant in a given setting is called hegemonic masculinity. Hegemonic signifies a position of cultural authority and leadership, but not total dominance as other form of masculinity persist alongside. Hegemonic masculinity embodies popular heroes, role models, and historical characters. According to Kimmel, 1970, 1997, hegemonic masculinity contains within it the image of the man in the power, a man with a power and a man of the power. We equate manhood with being strong, successful, capable, reliable, in control. The very definition of manhood we have developed in our culture maintain the power that some men wave over other men and that men have overpower. Hegemonic masculinity was understood as the pattern of practice that allowed men's dominance over women to continue. Hegemonic masculinity embodies the current most honored way of being a man, as it requires all other men to position themselves in relation to it and ideologically legitimate the global subordination to women to men. Men who receive the benefits of hierarchy without enacting a strong version of masculine dominance could be regarded as showing a complete masculinity. Hegemony did not mean violence, although it could be by force. It means ascendancy achieved through culture, institution, and persuasion. Hegemonic masculinity in Western society, being able to provide for one family, being rational, being successful, keeping one's emotion in check, and above all, not doing anything considered feminine. Hegemonic male norms stress values such as courage, aggression, autonomy, mastery, technology skills, technical skills, adventure, toughness in mind and body. Moreover, hegemonic masculinity is not just in relation to other masculinity, but in relation to the gender other as a whole. It is an expression of the privilege men collectively have over men. The hierarchy of masculinities is an expression of inequality shares that in privilege by different group of men. Those some masculinities are deemed as higher than the others, as well as higher than other form of genders. The third theme is collective masculinities. Gender structures of society define particularly patterns of conduct of find individuals as either masculine or feminine. This pattern also exists at the collective level institution such as corporation, armies, governments, and even schools. Masculinity is also defined collectively in the workplace and a formal group like street gangs. Masculinity also exists in personal in culture video games. For example, sir so type image of violent masculinity cinema and TV show portray stereotypes of masculinity such as abandoning father, um, disgusting student, abusive partner, and drug convict. In sports, an aggressive kind of masculinity is created organizationally by its instruction pattern of competition system of training and hierarchy of levels and rewards. So, nato siya ang three masculinity terms sa kini nga lesson. So, next is masculinities and being well or well-being. Masculinities and well-being research confirms a strong association between rigid norms about what it means to a man and man's negative health practices and vulnerabilities. Men are unlikely to talk about their worries and more likely to drink and other destructive behaviors when stressed. These findings, the evidence in the literature that conforming to rigid nation of masculinity contribution to social behavior and depression. So, dire ma-discuss na nato ang men as motong gingon nako na nga wala siya dili allow ang lalaki maka-feel of emotion, which is if ang lalaki daw is dili daw allow kanang di daw talkative when it comes sa problem nila because man is always a man. Then usahay mostly sa suicidal problem is mga lalaki. So because sa wala sila maingnan sa ilang mga problema na abot dito nga point nga mag-suicide na lang sila. Culturally dominant form of masculinity, which often urge men to practice strict emotion control, serve as barrier to health and help-seeking behavior, or some men to engage in practice detrimental to their own health and that of their families. Evidence confirm that death and disability rates related to alcohol and substances are considerable higher for men than for women, making substances abuse and addiction predominantly male phenomena worldwide. Family formation, fathering, caregiver, and domestic roles. Domestic roles are closely associated with women as carrying them out can involve a cost face for men. Great deals with heard about increases in women's labor force participation in recent decades, but less about men's caregiving and domestic roles. So mostly biyagid sa ato nga as domestic helper or domestic is babae gyud ang ginakuha para sa lain nasod because woman is daghan sila as a woman, di ba? woman, you should be ikaw dapat ang mag-alaga sa bata, ikaw maging sa trabaho sa balay, ikaw maghinlo, ikaw maglaba, etc. So as domestic helper, mas prefer sa other country nga ang babae ang ipadala kaysa sa lalaki. So sa pagka-domestic role is mas less than gid ang male kontra sa babae. Research, however, showed that men are on average not greatly increasing their role in household work and unpaid care. Lest do they know men are missing out in not engaging more in their domestic and family roles. It has been shown that being involved in these lives of their children brings psychological and health benefits to men. So, di ba kalain kayo po nga inaana ba nga nag-alaga ra gani ka og bata, ra kay nanay nana ra ka, pero naday sila makadala day og psychological problem ang inana para sa lalaki, because di ba lalaki ka, dapat ikaw ang nagtrabaho, but karon nagtrabaho lagi ka pero nagbantay ka bata, di ba? Para sa lalaki murag naog ang ilahang pride as a man. Research on child development demonstrate lasting benefits to children of their father's involvement in terms of their confidence and school performance. However, it was said that men may contribute to the domestic enterprise in other important ways, including through providing financial supports, accompanying children to activities outside of school or home. Better educated men are more likely to put more time in the domestic role and caregiving. Men's schooling may have expanded their sense of norm and weakened stereotypes through their exposure to broader ideas and more diverse people. Masculinities and alcohol and drug uses. So, nanatay idea ani nga part, because men is always sangkot sa mga ganito. So sila always bembente mabalita nga alcohol addict or drug convict or drug pusher, because men is always a man. Pero wala na kag-ingon nga men inani siya nga tao, mostly, or ang uban lalaki inana. So more men drink than women, and men drink more than women. Balik Study shows that men were more likely to drink than women, drank alcohol in greater quantity and more frequently than women, and were more likely to face alcohol-related health and social problem than women. So, manay akong giingon nga ang lalaki according sa ilang studies, ang lalaki ang perme, or ang lalaki ang mas dako o quantity or amount sa ginainom nga alcohol kesa sa babae. So maunang ginaong ang uban makaingon nga ang babae dali ra mahubog din ang lalaki, because according po sa mga nabasa nako is ang men have a high alcohol tolerance kesa sa babae. So mao ni siya ang igon sa studies dire nga ang babae daw is gamay lang gid ang ginainom, because women had mostly sa babae is low tolerance pag-abot sa alcohol. In many settings, men's drinking encourages solidarity and stimulates courage. It is okay peer group ritual as well as being a recreation activity. When men become drunk, fights and homicide are rational, and women are encouraged to tolerate men's drunkenness as natural part their being men. So, mani siya ang mali. If lalaki is nakainom, dili na to ingon nga ay hubog na normal na mahubog na inana. Because ang man, once nga mahubog sila and musaka sa utok ang alcohol, nana sila yung mga possibilities nga makapasakit or ang worst makapatay. So we should avoid that. Stop tolerating them to mainom, di ba? Drug use and drug dealing men serve as ways constructing a powerfully masculinities identity. Protest masculinities. Protest masculinity is a form of marginalized masculinity which pick up themes of hegemonic masculinity in the social at large but rework them in a context of poverty. In other words, it's akin to hegemonic masculinity but in the social drive context. Protest masculinity refers to describe instantly of extreme of formal forms of sex types behavior on the part of some males. Key to the concept of protest masculinity or high level of physical aggressive. The protest masculinity profile is also proposed as include destructiveness. So, 'di ba? Ang protest masculinity is destructive. So, ang as a protest masculinity, we should control our temper, 'di ba? Kay kung masobrahan ka o high blood, 'di ba? Dagan na kay magubot, dagay makanahimong nga gubot at that time. So, low tolerance for delay of gratification, crimes, drinking, and similar disposition. Protest masculinity is often product of narcissism built from deep feelings of powerless and insecure. Connell compressed it to the tense, freaky facade, making a claim to power where there are no real resources for power. Next is carrying masculinities. The emergence of carrying masculinities in many parts of the world has been assessed in several reports since the early 2000s. All of them highlighting the vitreous impact of this reshape in male identities and practices for gender equality proven in societies. After decades of women demanding equal rights and opportunities for the end of male dominant and its harmful costs in their life, carrying masculinity arise as a strongly against hegemonic masculinities. The concept of carrying masculinity processes that men are able to adopt what is viewed as traditional feminine characteristics. For example, if emotional expression, sex sensitive, dismotication, independence, caring, etc. without departing from or rejecting masculinity. Caring masculinity can be seen as masculine identity. So, um, that includes domination and brands that affective, rational, emotional, and interdependent qualities of care. A critical form of men's engagement in gender equality because doing care work requires men to resist the resist hegemonic masculinity and to adopt values and um, characteristic of care that are anti-hegemonic masculinities. So beside the commitment to care, work, and gender equality, caring masculinities is a mindful refusal of hegemonic masculinity and inherent prerogatives, as well as the plural manifestation of complete masculinity that it assumes. Men who approximate this form of masculinity are viewed as a form of a new man. So summary, masculinity and men's studies have been continuously developing from its inceptional up to present. These studies covered common themes and masculinities, different kind of masculinities such as hegemonic, protest, and caring masculinities, and its relationship of these masculinities to various aspects of the life and the environment. The end of discussion. Thank you for listening and mabuhay.